Hi, my name is Michael Martinez, and today we're here in South Florida, right before Hurricane Milton is about to hit Central Florida. And I wanted to highlight and talk to you a few things with a friend of mine from H&R Construction, Rudy Gonzalez, who wants to explain to us a little bit more of details of how houses are built here in South Florida versus everywhere else. And that is the reason because Miami-Dade County has one of the strictest building codes in the US. So Rudy, a lot of times I get buyers who are concerned, especially after watching CNN or Fox News and all the destruction that Hurricane Ann and Wilma and Katrina and God, there's a few hurricanes that have hit Florida. But just recently we saw everything that Helene did, and soon, unfortunately, there will be also damage from Hurricane Milton. And the reason why I want to talk to you about this is because people don't understand that here in South Florida, things are built slightly different. So, you turn on the news and you see some floating homes, you see things being washed away, especially in North Carolina with a lot of the flooding that they've had there. And here in South Florida, our infrastructure is totally different. We're built over coral rock, and for the most part, not all sections of Miami are in a flood zone. We want to talk a little bit about this, and this project that you have going on here in the heart of Pinecrest, it's a beautiful home. It's 8,000 plus square feet, over an acre property. And tell us a little bit more about the process of building and how Miami-Dade County's building code supersedes so much of other codes, not only in the state of Florida, but also in the rest of the US nation.
Yeah, Michael, so the biggest difference that we have here is that we are on rock, like you said. All of our foundations are poured concrete. We have continuous foundations that go under all the walls. We're not as susceptible to flash flooding because our ground is pervious. So it really sucks in that water quickly. It's all just bedrock. So the way we start construction is we pour these large foundations, and from there we have rebar sticking up vertically, and we have tie columns and masonry filled cells which tie everything down to the foundation.
Right.
So here you have a filled cell going all the way up to the roof, as well as a column, and this all ties into the foundation. So where you see houses floating away up north, right, that's not possible here because everything is tied together.
Most houses, Central Florida, North Florida, even in other states, are made out of 2x4s. So when you have structural divisions, usually these are running in this direction. And this is basically the support system for the house. Now don't get confused with these furry strips. This is actually used for drywall. What we're referring to is the cinder block, which happens to be 8 inches wide and is poured concrete. And that's the way that these houses are built. Here in South Florida, rather than using interior studs of 2x4, we use galvanized metal for framing purposes, for drywall and room dividers. But the shell and the exterior of the home, like Rudy was saying, is all built out of CBS block with rebar reinforcement and tied in columns, which is poured concrete. And of course, all of our foundations here are also concrete, so it's not like water's going underneath or the house is going to get lifted in the middle of a storm.
Right. We don't have any water coming from the ground up. We don't have water coming from hills, so right, the houses are not moving.
That's correct.
So one of the biggest lessons we learned in 1992 in Hurricane Andrew was that our windows and doors and our roof systems were our biggest exposure to damage. And not just damage, but catastrophic damage. So what we learned was when we would lose a window, the pressure differential would tear the roof off. So that was the biggest concentration for the engineers and the building code after Hurricane Andrew. And we'll go through the house and we'll show you what has transpired since then and the changes that have been made to make sure that that exposure doesn't exist anymore.
So Rudy, let's show us a little bit what you're talking about regarding the CBS block, the poured concrete, the impact windows. Tell us a little bit more about what's going on here.
So this is a storefront window system. It's a big window, so this is a big exposure that we have to wind and potential damage, right? But as you can see, we have 3 panels, and each panel has 10 concrete anchors into the floor and into the tie beam above. And those concrete anchors are this long. These are approximately 5 inches, and they go into the concrete probably 2.5 inches. In the past, where you would have had a few wood screws in the corners of these windows into wood framing, now you have concrete anchors that are engineered to withstand a certain amount of pressure from the inside and the outside. Remember that storms don't only push against the windows, they also suck out. So these windows are designed to withstand those forces. Also the glass, this glass is laminated. So instead of a regular glass like you would have in Central Florida, North Florida, anywhere in the country, which is just a single pane of glass, you can throw a rock and it would just shatter and break and fall to the floor. These windows will take an impact from a 2x4 at hundreds of miles an hour, and that 2x4 will not penetrate the house. So the glass will shatter, but it will not fall down and you won't have a hole through the glass.
And you know, not only the impact windows and doors are great for hurricane or storm purposes, but they offer a lot more. And one of my favorite things is the amount of privacy that it basically makes. You know, they're very sound resistant, so there's noise outside. If you're in a busy street or there's somebody screaming outside, you actually don't hear it. But furthermore, I mean, this is a very safe area. We don't happen to have that issue here, but in the case of somebody breaking in, this glass, like Rudy said, you can't really penetrate it. You could shatter it, but you can't get your hand through. In other words, if there was a lock and you're trying to open the door, you can't do it here. You're easier just going to the house next door that doesn't have hurricane protection or storm windows such as this home.
That's right, Michael. In order to get through this glass, it's going to take more than a brick. You're going to spend a good amount of time trying to get through. Gotcha. And also for sound, like you said, and energy savings. This laminated glass is thicker than a normal glass. It cuts down on that greenhouse effect that you get from such a large amount of glass in a house.
Hey Rudy, let's go upstairs, take a look at the roof. But sure. As we're going up here, I just realized that this is actually not a steel staircase, it's actually concrete and it's poured in, which kind of makes it even sturdier in the sense of what we're talking about. So I like this detail.
This house specifically went with a concrete stair instead of steel.
So we're upstairs in the primary suite, and this is a pretty good point of view to kind of see a few different roof systems that this house has. Now this is a hybrid house, what we call kind of more of a transitional. You're going to have a modern flare with a traditional flare. So here you're going to have a mixture of two roofs, one that is poured concrete flat roof and one that is a truss system. So Rudy's going to explain to us a little bit more of what we have going on here and the way it's secured to the home.
Yeah, Michael, like you said, because of the design style of this house, we have a mix of flat and hip roof. The flat roof is poured concrete instead of a wood truss system. So that's obviously going to give you a lot of structural strength and basically no uplift in a storm. Now, where the transition is between the concrete and the wood trusses, we have a Simpson strong tie bucket holding up the trusses, which is bolted into the concrete beam with 3/8 concrete anchors and then screwed into each truss. On top of that, we have double straps that are embedded in the concrete beam holding each truss down. In the past, you would have had a toenail nailing the truss to a wood nailer on top of the concrete. We found out that that did not work well in Andrew, and that was the major failure point of most of the structures that failed.
Not everybody could afford a new home or has the luxury to build a new home. There is a insurance company since Hurricane Andrew, Rudy, they have required some homeowners that don't have double straps to go back in and retrofit some of these attics and some of these roofing systems. So although if you're back at home thinking, well, my house is not new, there is still the possibility of double strapping your trusses. And of course, some people do retrofit their windows and their door openings to be able to come compliant to code kind of home.
Right, in Miami, we see a lot of people changing windows and doors out to impact hurricane-rated windows and doors. If you're gonna undertake a major renovation, you might as well take advantage and strap your roof down properly. The other thing that the code changed was the way that we nailed down the plywood. In the event of a storm, if you have one sheet of plywood lift up, that's a major problem, not only with water entering the residence, but also it creates a domino effect where you lose one sheet and then another sheet, and then by the time you know it, your roof is gone. So in South Florida now, we have to nail the perimeter of all the plywood sheets at 4 inches on center with ring shank nails. Now a ring shank nail is very difficult to pull out once it's in. We've also been required to add X bracing and additional bracing to the trusses so that if you do, in the event, lose a piece of your roof, you don't have a domino effect where the trusses just tumble down one behind the other.
So Rudy, now that you've explained to us the skeleton of how everything's built, let's kind of get a highlight of what's going to be in the future. I know that you just started finishing a portion of this house with a metal roof. And metal roofs down here in South Florida, and actually all parts pretty much, do very, very well. The reason being, it's a galvanized metal and it has a long shelf life. These metal roofs last anywhere between 30 to 50 years. They have very little uplift, they look beautiful, and if one day you get tired of the color, you could actually paint it. So let's take a look a little bit what you're doing here. Come on. So we're outside the primary suite in this balcony area, and this gives us a beautiful perspective of the backyard and the future pool and the landscaping of this house. But for right now, we're talking about the roof, and Rudy here is going to highlight a little bit more regarding the metal roof of this home.
We have a standing seam metal roof, which is considered to be the longest lasting roof you could put on a house in South Florida. There are no exposed screws on this system. It's attached to the roof with clips, so you have no chance of rusting out a screw. You have no chance of water rusting out a screw and creating a leak. You also have hardly any cross section to catch wind. So this is probably the best roof system for a hurricane.
Rudy, thanks for taking your time and explaining this beautiful build that you have going on here in Pinecrest. And it's amazing all the work that you're doing. And I love the way you think, and you're always thinking about how to supersede the Miami-Dade building code, which I have noticed, and as well as, I know you're quite a boater as well. A lot of times during the summer, living here in South Florida, we visit a lot of the Bahamian Islands. And the Bahamas has also been an area that's been hit quite strongly. And I know that they have been also adapting to the Miami-Dade building code. So it's great to see what you're doing and how you're just going far and beyond what the code requires. So thank you for doing that.
It's my pleasure, Michael. And it's important to remember that the building code is just a minimum. And we really strive to make these houses as safe and as well built as possible. And like you said, there's a lot of people that are starting to adopt our codes. I wish they would have done it sooner. And to all our friends in Central Florida, we hope you stay safe throughout this storm, and good luck.
The purpose of this video is to better explain to people a little bit about our building code. Our heart is with everybody in Florida and North Carolina and everything that they have been through. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach Rudy or myself. Again, my name is Michael Martinez, and thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our page.